Hello, everybody. This is Talks with Tumi. Your host is Lindy Wemashaya for this section. I have the Mbonambis with us today. They're looking lovely and wonderful. So we'll get straight into it. So, guys, hi. Tell us about yourselves, where you met, and was it love at first sight?
No, it wasn't love at first sight. I was just invited by a friend, and I came over to see him at the Maristin Rest, and we spent almost a night with a group of friends, and my wife was the loudest, and we were arguing. We didn't even know each other that much, but we were into arguments so much. And we argued, but I didn't feel anything at that time, but I appreciated the confidence and the expression. And days went by, and I felt something so strong, and then I made my ways to reach out to her, and I approached her. Obviously, I was not the qualified one, but eventually I had my way.
So definitely not love at first sight. I think Sbongiseni Kasizulu bar ungshele for like a year, and I was like, guy, please, no, stop it, man of God. And so I said yes to him after a year. So definitely not love at first sight. That was after prayer and all of that, and some people who are his friends trying to make me see a bigger picture and stuff like that. So that's how we met. We met in Mariston, where I was a student in UJ, and but we not love at first sight at all.
Sure. Clearly, it was not love at first sight. So tell us about the duration of your marriage and your transition from, being girlfriend and boyfriend to now being husband and wife. How was that?
So we married now for 7 years, going on 8, and we dated for 5 prior those years. So the transition for me, it's natural. The difference is just we were not living together. I think that's what, but that's the only difference which I see from us being girlfriends and boyfriends, in that we had a long distance relationship. He was in KZN and I was in Gauteng, but I never felt like he wasn't there because communication was tops. My husband is very good with words, whether written or spoken, so he would keep me alive with nice poems and nice messages, long calls, and So the transition, now being married with him, being with him in the same house every day, it's my happy place. I think the nicest place, the nicest time where I enjoy being any other place in the world is where he is. That's our home. That's where, even when I'm at work, I can't wait to go home, and because I know he's there. Wherever I am, I always say, I just want to go home, because that's my happy place, and that's the only difference I think will be that we were just not living together when we were dating. Yeah,
I think I was a very committed boyfriend. So
yes.
I was a very committed boyfriend. I made sure that I was there, so I was fully present as a boyfriend. So it wasn't much of a transition for me, except that now we were officially staying together and blessed. It was not a boyfriend and girlfriend thing. It was now a marriage, but I was a very committed boyfriend. So when I needed to show up, I'll arrange with friends and be there and make sure that I am in the right place. And, I made sure I didn't leave a gap. So the transition to me was smooth because I was there. I wasn't thinking I didn't have to think more than once to see if whether or not I'll be a good husband. I was just there. So it's been like that to me.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something, maybe as you speak. I think that what comes to mind now is when our culture clash and shock, when we started, I think that's the transition, which, I was very shocked to live with a Zulu man who, guys, I grew up in a city, born and bred in the city, and he's from the village, born and bred in the village. So that transition was like, oh yeah.
Well, I'm not from the village.
Yeah, no, it's a village.
I'm not from the village. I am in an undeveloped place.
But it's a village.
But it's not a village because where I am, I'm located within the what you call malls. I can walk there. So for me, a village is something else. But I don't want my wife to think, hey, I pulled him out of you know. And I always fight about that. No, it's not a village. But it took me from there. It took me from there.
Yeah, I think that transition, especially in the first year of marriage, that was very interesting because expectations and how he grew and what he's seen people, women to be, and what I know. And it was two different things. I said, we need to get help. Somebody must come and do like house chores, because I never believed that being a woman is defined by doing house chores. I think it's irrelevant whether you do house chores or not. It doesn't define your womanhood or that you're a good wife or something like that. But his understanding of being a wife was quite interesting and different. And he felt like, I remember he would say, ngiyajabula nje ngokubona unyakazi. Uyalena, even if ungabona ukuthi wenzani, mara unyakazi, ngibona ukuthi umfazi wenza something. I was like, no, that's not why we went to school. We went to school so that we can afford such things. So that was very interesting. That was our first year of marriage. We would, quarrel a lot about who does what, who doesn't do what, how I grew up. And I think eventually figured out, to say I'm married to a woman who doesn't even iron. But I'm so blessed because he likes to do things himself. So in that regard, then it worked out because then he said, let me do it myself, because I would try and attempt to iron his shirt, for example, and he would redo it because for obvious reasons. Obvious reasons. Yeah, but that was I don't know if you.
Yeah, that was the difficult thing. But we eventually agreed that we needed to create a new culture for ourselves and not be stuck in what we have learned back in the places we came from. So when we decided on that, let's check our strengths. Let's see who's able to do what. And if somebody is good, for instance, my wife is good with money, and I don't even bother there because I'm too generous. I have a heart of a pastor. I can spend until I have nothing, and it fulfills me, and she understands that. But to be safe, I said, no, you handle that area because that's what you studied for, that's what you're passionate about. And if we do everything else using that kind of an agreement that we have to create our own culture and stick to it so that we protect ourselves and not be divided by things that are unnecessary because we've learned them and we want to hold on to them. So that was the thing for us.
Sure, that's a very interesting point. So in your experience in your first year and lessons that you've learned from being married, particularly to you, Mr. Mbonambi, your transition into understanding and creating a new culture. When we are cultured, we are cultured. So what made you get to the place where you were in terms of understanding the city girl who did not know how to iron a shirt?
Well, I had to understand that if it's difficult for her to come to my world, it's difficult for me to come to her world. And we're going to remain divided unless we are both willing to leave our worlds and create a new world, because loving each other was more important to us than those things. And we wouldn't allow those things to break us. So it was a sober decision. I can't allow myself to go further getting hurt unnecessarily, because these things I can do without. And I can enjoy my marriage, I can enjoy my wife, understand her weaknesses and her strengths, and let her understand my weaknesses and my strengths, and let's collaborate those two things, and we can possibly have a better marriage. And if we do strive to be excellent in marriage, we will. It's an achievable desire. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a person who challenges thoughts, and I don't take things as they come. I question things a lot. And so if something is said to be this way, my initial thing would be, why is it that way? Who said it should be this way? And, I remember, I think for my husband, it took time for him to be where we are, because it took time for him to understand me, and it took time for me to understand him. Because, obviously culture shock and expectations, when you're younger, you have a certain expectation of what your marriage would look like. So he had his own expectations. I had my own expectations. And I, in my life, in my vision of being anything, whether I was married or not, I'd never envisioned myself having to wash kittens. I mean, it's something which I don't want to do. I don't dream of. I don't think of. I'd rather have to pay for those services. But for him, he feels like, it's just the two of us here. We don't have children. We can do this and this. I'm like, no. I'm good at other things, and I'll excel there. And I don't want to. There are some things I don't feel like I need to give them my time, because we can outsource them. So learning to adjust when to outsource and what to outsource, and their priorities. Yeah. But I think now, even how he looks, it took time for us to get to this space.
I moved from a quadrille to skinny jeans,
it took time,
and T-shirts.
But God is gracious. This is evidence about what God can do.
If you know me, there's been a great transformation. Yeah, that was it.
All right. No, that's beautiful, man. I love the fact that you had to adjust, men of God, because in the world that we're from, it's women that always have to sort of bend. Yeah. So how do you keep the flame burning in your marriage with so many responsibilities?
So my husband is my best friend. Anything that happens in my life, the first person I think of telling or informing or sharing, whether it be a joke, whether I meme my soul, whether I'm anyway, he's the first person that comes to mind. And we do everything together. The only time I'm not with my husband is when I'm at work. And that's if he feels that I'm at work and he misses me, and he would come there. So we literally always together, and we keep the flames burning by being transparent with each other. I think being transparent for us has been the greatest thing. I believe that the only person you can really ever be naked with is your spouse. And true nakedness, not necessarily sexually, but nakedness of your soul, nakedness of your thoughts, nakedness of your emotions, nakedness of everything that concerns you. And I think he's the one person who knows me more than anybody else, because I am one with him. So our flame is burning because I still feel butterflies. He still makes me feel very good. He still makes me feel very special. And he's the greatest guy. I'm blessed to have been chosen by him, because I was very stubborn in that regard. And I always say, sometimes my decisions are not best, because I was wanting to go to the next, to some different, and I would have missed all this. And our flame is rekindled every day. So my husband, he's not a typical romantic guy. I'm trying to, that area of life, guys. Lantombo. He buys me flowers maybe 2-3 times a year. I'm trying, guys. But I know that, he thinks of me whenever he's got any type of money. I know that I'm the first person he's going to spend it on. And he's got a way of appreciating me. He ensures that I don't get to do stuff. What I'm realizing now, ever since we've been too busy with lockdown and whatever, one thing that I love and appreciate is that he doesn't want me to worry about cooking. And he's taken that role silently so. But he ensures that he doesn't want me to worry about it, and I never have to worry about it. So he's he keeps the flame burning because he knows, if I don't have to do anything after work, and obviously I'm ready for him because I'm not tired, because he's ensured that he's made the pots to make sure, and he's ready. And during the day, he calls me. I think I speak to him most in the day. He calls me. We WhatsApp. Every day. I think maybe we speak about how many times, baby? A lot of times a day. So that's how we keep our flame burning.
I think for me, what keeps the flame going on is just making sure that we strive to live in simplicity, because there's a lot of distractions and unnecessary taking of pressure. If we want to live our lives beyond our means. And for me, what my wife has given me is making sure that there is not too much impossible expectations and desires. I live in simplicity. I don't have any pressure. I enjoy my life. I enjoy my life and my wife for that, because it keeps us happy. We enjoy what we enjoy, simple things. Whatever we can afford, that's what we enjoy. If we don't have it, we'll prepare for it and we'll get it when we get it. And that has been our lives, and it has been a great blessing for me and my marriage. That's a life we enjoy the most. One day we'll just stand up and say, let's go grab an ice cream. And my wife will say, we're just driving for an ice cream. Yes, let's drive for an ice cream, have an ice cream, have some moments to chat, and let's come back home. And where I can possibly do certain things, I make sure I do them, and I think my wife enjoys that about me. Just being a simple guy who loves people, and I think that's one thing people cannot take away from me. I just love people, and if you give me that, you will enjoy me forever. So that's what keeps the flame. My wife understands me. I understand her, and where there is some kind of misunderstanding, we argue like any other couple, and that's normal for us, like it is for any other couple. But we come back. I used to be very angry. I had so many issues when I joined my wife. I had so many issues. I harbored so many things, so many hurts, and it took me quite some time to realize that I need to offload and let somebody love me genuinely and give me the joy that I believe God has put in store for me. And that's what she has given me, and I enjoy that about her. Now, I'm just a soft guy. Hard when it's necessary.
No, you're just a soft guy.
Teddy bear.
Teddy bear got to me. I know that this question might be a bit hard for the both of you, but I will ask it. What are your thoughts on parenthood? I know that it's been quite a journey for the both of you, and it will be disingenuous if you don't ask it, So what are your thoughts around parenthood?
I think for me, my husband, ever since I met him, he loves children. Any child, whether we meet children in the mall, he would stop and actually engage and talk with that child. In church, I think there was a time literally where we went to this church. He was invited to go preach, and there was this child there, and they connected, and throughout the sermon, he was carrying the child on his arms, because that's how much he loves children. So we are waiting for God to bless us with our own children. We have 2 children who have passed, and we're waiting for more children, for us to be able to experience here on earth as well. So parenthood for us will be just a great thing. But I've learned that God gives us people and opportunities to be a blessing to. And we've entertained thoughts of being foster parents and being adopting parents. And my husband said he's not ready yet, but I think I'll pray more. And something might give in that regard, because I know how much he loves children. I think he will be a very, very good father, because he's the greatest husband, he's the greatest brother. I think even his parents would say that he's a good son. So I think we can't wait. We are forced to wait, but we, we're looking forward to it. I think that area of our life is some area that we are excited about. Yeah.
Well, my answer, I have to be very, very strategic in answering, but still speak my truth. I always look at how I treat other people's kids. Then it gives me sort of an idea of what kind of a father I will be when I become a father. And I have a small boy back from home, Umpimet, and he loves beating me. And I believe that the reason he loves me so much is because he can sense that fatherhood spirit in me. He knows when I'm shouting at him, I do it right, and I do it for a good reason. Because when he's not done anything wrong, I still show like unconditional love. So he's able to tell, okay, now I think I have gone wrong, and I'm adapting to whatever this man is throwing at me, and I'm going to take it, because I know after this moment, he will be more like a father to me. He will love me. So if I look at how I handle other people's kids, then I know I'll definitely be a good father by God's grace.
A strict one.
Very strict. But I think as I grow up, I'm becoming more softer. And I don't like it about myself. That's the part I don't like about myself. Because even with my sisters, they would look at me like, this brother, you need to carefully think before you speak to. But I try by all means to let them know that I'm a brother. I'm not a parent. I'm a brother. So they need to be able to have some access and speak about certain things, make certain requests, because that's who I am to them. And I think I have had to deal with myself with regard to being just this stiff guy, just relax a bit and let them know your love. So I think it will be the case with my kids, but definitely sure, I'll be a good father, judging from what my wife is saying about me.
That's beautiful, man. Let us chat about communication in marriage. What tips, thoughts, and advices you would give to us with the lessons that you learned and resolving conflict amongst yourselves. So,
I'll go back to what I said just a while ago, that I used to have serious anger issues, and it was messing me up. And the more I tried to open up to my wife and deal with myself, because at some stage I would be angry for 2 weeks, not speaking, and that was a horrible place to be in. And the moment I made a decision and I said, I cannot, I don't know if abuse is the correct word, but I'm lacking a better word now. But it was more of an abuse for me to be angry for 2 weeks while living with someone else. So there came a time when I said, you know what, if I'm angry, I'm going to be angry a day or half a day, then I'm fine. After that, I must sit down and deal with it, So communication plays a great role. When you communicate about how things must be done and you agree on whatever that you are suggesting and you do it, you act on it, it enhances the relationship. It brings peace to the relationship. Now I don't have those issues. I can be angry, but I force myself to have some form of communication about whatever issue that I have. And it is the same thing with every decision that we ought to be making at whatever time that we have to make that decision.
I think for me, communication is very vital. There's a question that we always ask each other. I think once in a while, in every few weeks, we say, "Usahleli kahle?" Very important question to say, "Usase right?" Because sometimes you can walk with somebody and you realize like they're not seated very well, and they're not really enjoying their marriage, or maybe you've left somebody behind, and you are just, sometimes you can live with somebody in the same house, but you find that you're having different experiences in your marriage. Somebody can say, "I'm so happy, my life is a bliss, my marriage is this," and you find the other person is thinking, I need out. So for me, communication is for us to have those moments where we really ask ourselves to say, "Are you still fine? Is this still what you had envisioned? Is there any way we need to adjust? Is there anything that we need to do?" So for me, having to communicate, it's very important. And I would advise and give tips to people to try asking that question, and genuinely so, and have time out. Don't leave a big space before you ask it, because sometimes people go through things, and because of the happenings of lives, we're not able to catch up. And when you ask that your spouse a genuine question to say, "Usahleli kahle na?" And genuinely discuss it, and you'll find a lot of things will come out from there. That's when you'll hear about, "When you did this last, I didn't like, and please do it this way." And in a nice, when you're not arguing, we're just talking, but you're asking a very important question. So I would advise that people must ask that question. Are we still fine? Are you still happy in this marriage? Are you still okay? Or do we need to do something else?
Beautiful. Let's chat about ministry, right? The background, your calling. When did you guys discover your calling, and how?
Well, my journey has been interesting from the beginning of my walk with God. But what I can recall is I just had a messed up life, not schooling anymore, just, swimming in rebellion and doing other serious stuff that are life destructive. And by God's grace, my pastor, Ubaba Masu, just came in and they pitched a tent there. And I just had a strong thing, a strong desire to hear, or just to go to church. And I went to church. I was drunk, and but something was just pulling me to go to that revival. And that was the day I got saved. I can remember the scripture that was being preached there, but I think more than that, I was fascinated on the way the man was preaching, and that what took my heart. And I think there was a reason why that happened. I was more interested in becoming the man that I was seeing preaching before me than just getting saved. But I had to get saved because my life needed that. So I gave my life to Christ on that day, and my life was never the same. And from the first week, my life was just about testifying, about telling people about Jesus Christ. And that's when my calling began. I just knew from the onset that this was going to be my life. I went to high school. I remember teachers would say to me, "You're just a good speaker. You're just a good speaker." And I would say to them, "It's not just about me speaking, but there is something strong in me, and I know where I will end." And everybody would confirm that. But you know what? Well, now we can see where you're going. Your thing is straight, but they would also suggest that you can maybe become what I think I asked you the other day what it is, because it's been long. The term has not been, I've never heard of the term for a long time. I think it was a PR or PRO, something like that. And my teacher would say, but you can become a PRO because you're good with a tongue. And that's how my calling started. And I've known this calling thing from that time, and I've lived it up to now. And it has been a great journey, full of ups and downs, but I am appreciative of every moment I've had in it. Yeah.
So my ministry journey is, well, I would say I grew up in a church, not understanding a lot, obviously going to Sunday school and stuff. But at the age of 12, that's when I gave my life to Jesus Christ, being conscious about what is happening. And so from then in high school, I had this urge of starting, at school during break times. I wanted to start like a home cell, but always school prayer time during break, something. And I think that's when I knew that this is what I'm meant to do with my life. In preaching Christ, in high school, I went to a very interesting school where, obviously kids are playing on the grounds there, and people are just running around, and I'm there talking about how Jesus loves you, come to Jesus, laying hands on people. And yeah, that's my journey. And I knew from then. And the nice thing I appreciated about when I met Sbongiseni is that he said to me, I love you, and I'm going to marry you. But I want you to know this about me, to say I'm a man of God, I'm anointed, and me loving you, I don't want you to disturb that part, because that's who I am. And, from then onwards, that's when I knew that this is what we're going to do. But I never thought that I would have a church. I remember in matric when we're choosing what we want to do afterwards, my uncles are asking me, what you're going to do? I said, no, I'm going to study theology. And, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to know God. I wanted to preach for all my life. And my uncles, my mother was worried. They had a family meeting. And it was a big thing because, there's no way. You can't study theology. You're young. Study engineering. Do something else. But I knew that, this is what I want to do. And this is because there's an edge that I think the path that God takes you through, and he leads you to a place. But as for marrying a pastor, it was never on the cards. I never... No.
And instead of theology, you went for counting people's monies.
Yeah, because I was good at it at school, and I enjoyed it. So it's something which it's not far off. It's not like it was a second choice or whatever. It's not far off, but But my ministry journey has been and of course we went to Mariston Home Cell, and that's where I think it blossomed a lot. And that's where God introduced other things, the other interests and stuff like that. And actually, I would say shaping it. Sometimes but it's not really formed and shaped. And I think that is in that phase of life where it's now still taking like a bigger shape. But I think that's when, the foundation of it was like shaped. Yeah.
Beautiful. So is what you perceived about ministry what you're experiencing now? And what advice would you have for young ministers out there?
Ministry is very interesting. I think any pastor you would ask the same question would answer you almost the same way, that we had one expectation and the journey presented something that is completely the opposite of what we have expected. But that's how God does things, especially if you're doing something genuine and you follow precisely what God is saying. Because one thing ministry has a way of doing is sifting you from people that are not supposed to be in your space and aligning you with people that are supposed to be in your space. And most of the times, those people will be 1, 2, 3, and our minds is expecting 1,000. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a position where we feel like, well, did we really hear him call us? Yes, we've heard him call us. But he's got his own ways of doing things. And we have to adjust. We have to submit ourselves to those ways. When I thought of ministry, I thought ministry would be the same thing as me just getting there, preaching to 12,000 people like I did on invitations, great platforms, and I would expect the same when I come to my own ministry, and it wasn't so. And that thing taught me that, God will give you the ability to, or God will build you while you build the church. So certain things have to happen because while you go through them, they're building you, preparing you for the same work. So ministry for me has, I've had to deal with a lot of things that I didn't expect, and I cried, but I still saw God in them. I think like he did to Moses, he would give everyone his miracles, but he will give to you his ways.
Hey.
And that was the case with me, and I think it's the case with every preacher. So we're learning his ways. We're not learning to glean his miracles.
Receive, Papa.
Yeah. So ministry is something else, but the journey is so fulfilling with its ups and downs. It's still God's will for us, and I'm still enjoying that. And I don't think there will be any other reason that will make me give up on ministry.
So for me, definitely not. The realities versus the perception of it. Very taxing, time-consuming. You literally give your life to this. And if you're not sure about what God said, I don't think you can stand. Because it is the knowledge of what God said that keeps one going. Because especially, sometimes you expect that people in your circle or in your life would know what you're about, but it's seldom that they would really fully comprehend it. So you need to really know what God said so that you stand. Because it will, the question that ministry and this journey is asking every day is that, did you hear what God said, or do you believe what he said? Because, church people are very interesting. This Sunday you would have like whatever amount of people. The next Sunday it'll just be you and your husband. And what we have learned is that being consistent is actually trusting in what and believing what God said, because the advice I would give to younger pastors that continue to be consistent, whether there are people there, whether people are not there, whether because sometimes you feel like you must do less, or you must, especially for us preachers, you want to preach, like someone that we classify as powerful when there's more people, in the church. And you somehow want to rob because you're saying, just two people, I can just say anything, or just, even say 10 minutes. But I just want to talk about being consistent, especially when you start, especially when, there are moments where I remember Sbongiseni telling me stories about when he was calling people, talking about the journey. They would say, there's literally a time where I would sit by the door, just counting people who are coming in and expecting that, so-and-so will show up. And sometimes people don't show up. But be consistent. And what I've learned is that, no, it's not, unless you give yourself and you die to it, because the calling is yours. Anyway, people, they might support you, but you are the one who's called. And you're the one who needs to stand. Support is good, but they were not called. You are the one who's called. And you're the one who said God said. And because he said, you must continue. Whether prayer session, people don't, I don't know, Mazalan don't like attending prayer sessions. I don't know. In those prayer sessions, whether it's just you and your husband, be consistent. If a service would have been an hour, continue being, be in a place where what you would do when you have 100 people, do it when you have one. And that's what I would advise.
Wow, that's powerful. We have a question here from our viewers. The right way of dating for young adults, courtship, all these sorts, mjolo. What is the right way, Bafundisi? Is there a right way?
Well, I think the right way is the way founded on one's understanding of God's principles. For instance, khona abantu who believe in Bonisweni. And I had a lot of those back at home. and I don't fault anything, but I made a decision that I wouldn't follow that. That was my personal decision. I wouldn't follow that. I would follow what I believe in. And I'm not saying that one I'm not opposing it, but it wouldn't work for me. So that's why I'm saying, as long as it has, when you do it, you've got God's principles in your mind, and you still honor God, you do it. Just do that, as long as you know that you are still holy, you are still respectful, and you are still in God's will. That's the simple way by which I can answer. That honor God in everything that you do. And if you do that, if you take a different decision, you will know if what you're doing is wrong. And you'll take necessary measures. But the best way for me is to keep the principles of God's word in your mind in whatever decision you take, especially with regard to dating and getting married.
I think where there's no vision, first of all, people perish. Where there's no purpose, a thing is abused. And if you try to date without any purpose or any vision or anything, chances are you're abusing the situation. So I would advise people not to date for the sake of dating, not to date because of a certain age, not to date because whatever. If your vision is not clear about your life, if you don't know who you are about your life, I would strongly advise against dating at all, because the world does things differently. They say you date somebody and you'll grow to love them, you'll grow to understand them, you'll grow, and maybe you might want to marry them. But for us as children of God, I feel it's better to inquire from God who the person that you're trying to engage in a relationship with is, and if that's the path for you, because you have a path that God has set for you. So you would need somebody who would have a path that would be aligned to that. So you don't date for the sake of fun. I know people, you can play with things, but imagine playing with your heart all the time. I wouldn't advise against that. So there's a kingdom way of dating, and there's a worldly way of dating. The kingdom way of dating, I would say, is inquiring about who you are before you engage with someone else. Because if you get into any space without you having acknowledged what are you all about, what are you going to give out? Because Loena, you're still trying to figure out what you're all about. So and that's why there's a lot of things which are a mess. If you are intertwined with, there will be a lot of temptation, sexual and so forth. But because you know what you're all about, I always said when we with Sbongiseni, we dated like for 5 years, and there was a time when I started working, I left alone and to come visit me and go back home, whatever. And I said we're in a place where nobody knows us, nobody knows that you are called, nobody knows that I'm called. We can do whatever we want. But because I knew the people that I said we can think we're cheating now, but we're actually not cheating ourselves. We're cheating our generations and the churches and the people that we're going to preach later to, because you can't live a life because this is what the devil does. He wants to silence you. He wants to silence what you're all about. So he'd want you to engage in things before, so that next it will be difficult for you to engage in them. It's hard to preach about something that you also living and whatever. So that's what the devil, watch out for that trick, because the devil can see your destiny, can see your future, and he will bring things that will try to distract you. So be very purposeful about that area of your life, because really being with someone can really take your life into a different direction altogether, where you find that you've lost yourself, you've lost your purpose, you've lost, you don't no longer recognize yourself. So I would say there's a kingdom way of dating, and just be deliberate about it. Be intentional about why you're dating, why this person specifically, what are they adding into the journey of your life? What are they adding in everything that you're supposed to do? Obviously, you don't have a clear picture of this is how you're going to go this year and next, but at least you have God. What I know about God is that he gives us the end goal, but he doesn't really tell us how we're going to go there. So when you look at the end goal of your life and what you have, is this the person that you're dating now? Are they there with you? Are they going there with you? Are they part of that journey? And that's what I would say.
To add on that, I usually say, any sin you live in, you have no authority to rebuke. Any sin. If we dishonor God and ourselves and everyone else by sleeping together and engaging in sex, we wouldn't be able to inspire people to do the same. And for us to hold authority in any space, we have to make sure we keep that space sacred. And so that has been our principle. If you wanna talk about living holy, Tumi, live holy. Let me see it. If you wanna talk about talking to other people nicely, you do it yourself. Let me see it, because in whatever area you do right, you have authority to address somebody, and they adhere to what you are saying and they leave it out because they've inherited the same spirit from you, you know. So it's important that whatever we do, we remember. And lastly, I cannot sit here and be in between. You can say you have a vision, but you can't really, as a child of God, say you have a vision for dating when you're dating an unbeliever.
Eish.
But it's a topic for another day.
Yes,
but,
it is.
But it's a topic for another
Yes,
day. But
it
it
is.
can't be, in my understanding, that you are hooked. I don't want to argue about tithing. So I'll choose someone who believes in tithing. But I don't want that unnecessary
Fundamentals.
argument. I don't have that in my house, because we've made sure we communicate the things we believe in. As a result, if I begin today to believe in something different from what I told my wife I believe in when we first met, then I need to be corrected. I can't sit here and say, hey, now I don't believe in tithe, and then we argue about tithe. We have broken the marriage because it was not founded upon that. So it's important to communicate these things before we get married. That's what I call perfect dating. You make sure you understand, and you understand if you are in sync or not with the other person.
Wow. On that note, what do you consider to be the biggest myth about being a pastor?
Biggest myth would be that you don't have any problems, your life is perfect, or that you don't go through anything. And I think that for me, that's the biggest myth, where people don't expect you to be upset or sad, and people would want to do funny things to you and expect you to keep quiet because you're a pastor. You know, that's the biggest myth, to say, pastors, no, they take everything. You're supposed to be quiet. And a biggest myth about being a woman pastor is that you need your husband to function. That's the biggest myth, to say that you need your husband. If your husband is not there, you are not functioning. In fact, not even functioning, you are not even recognized. You hear comments, people saying, we call ourselves pastors because we're married to pastors. And there's a lot of things that people don't understand about. I don't know if they don't understand or they just assume, to say, somebody arguing to say, I don't know why we even call people Mam Ruth. There's nothing like that in the Bible, and all these things. But for me, the biggest myth is that pastors are just, they don't go through anything. And they must take everything that we give out to them. So Bazalwane would lie or promise things that they don't want to do, and they expect the pastor not to feel.
I think I share the same sentiments, more especially because I've been there and I'm still living in it, where you deal, when you come to church, you're dealing with different sick people. These people are not right. It's sick people, and you must understand that. These are sick people who need an extremely or an enough time to be worked on mentally. And you bring them to your world where you make them understand what you're all about. But my wife is correct in saying that we are seen as people who don't fault, as people who don't have to fault, as people who must be completely condemned when they fault and not even be embraced and corrected and built up. And I think it has killed many of us, because we live in our own world where everything is perfect. And that's a presentation we have given to the people we are preaching to, that we don't have problems. If you ask me, are you okay? My answer automatically is I am, and I'm doing just fine, because I'm speaking faith. And I think it's something we need to work on, to say, people, please understand that we are human too. There are words by Paul saying, we make others rich, but we not reach ourselves.
Yes.
We make others rich, but we not reach ourselves. And that's our nature. But at the same time, the people need to understand that we desire to be rich. So we're not just doing it because it's in our nature. We desire it ourselves. So it's the same principle in everything that we do, that we need that grace, and we need that support, and we need people to be there in times of need. My wife would tell you there are moments when I'm just messed up mentally. I remember one day we were here at church, preached a good word, and in just a couple of minutes, suddenly something changed in my mind, and I was this most sad person. And I got home, it was like something hit me hard, and it almost destroyed me. And fortunately, my wife is able to pick such things and try by all means to speak me back into the right position. Now imagine if I didn't have her and I dealt with me until I came back, So those are the things that we pray those myths will change. We pray that those things, people will start looking at them differently.
There's another myth I'm thinking of, that pastors are not meant to be well off financially. That's the biggest myth. They say God must see them and God must provide for them. And when a pastor drives, for example, a certain brand of a car, or lives in a certain area, they say, no, these pastors, they eat bazalani's man. That's the biggest myth. It's like when you're a servant, you're supposed to just literally look like, I don't know, or drive this, or not have a car, so that you depend on. I think that's the biggest myth, to say
God must bless you, but he must not go beyond 10,000.
Yeah. It's like they keep you, they want to keep you like a certain cap, to say pastors must go and just operate up to here, but a pastor cannot live in this place, and then pastors' children must not go to this school because imali. So I think there's a myth that abafundisi badla imali is I remember somebody told me a story, to say somebody was complaining, to say, umfundisi buys suits, for example, in this store, and the one suit in that store is like 15,000 rand, and that person was complaining. So the person was telling me, asked that person to say, how much would you say is your monthly offering? She's like, no, I offer like 10 rands a day. 10 rands per service. And that person, I said to the other one, to say, so you think 40 rand can buy that suit, because that's what you give? If pastor was really 40 rand, 15,000. So are you saying the pastor must look raggedy for him to feel like he's a pastor? Or do you think imali yakho vele iyenza ukuthi pastor abe kanje? So I think there's that myth ukuthi umfundisi fanele ahluphe ukuthi atshengise ukuthi upowerful, uqotshiwe, yazi umfundisi fanele nje bahluphe, kunoma umfundisi bahlale basicela ukuthi siyahlupheka bazalwane, siloko sibanikeza ama-5 rand. But when a pastor is a businessman or he's whatever, and we feel like he's losing focus, we don't want pastors to succeed. And that's the biggest myth, to say pastors must not be empowered wealth-wise, or even if they are, we want them to be kept and at a certain level. I think
they would even buy you a grocery.
Hey.
They don't give you money for grocery. They will buy you to keep you humble. They don't want you to go beyond. So they will rather go to the shop for you and buy whatever they think you deserve and bring it to you, and you must appreciate. And I think things must change.
Hey. Now that's tough. Do you get to a point of doubting God and questioning your own faith? And was there ever a time where you guys just wanted to quit this ministry thing?
Definitely. I think it's hard to do something, and when you measure progress, you measure it by numbers. I think that's what the biggest thing that has made me sometimes question if actually what we're doing is it the right thing. Why is God not sending, for example, people our way? Are we not doing the right thing, and so forth? So quitting ministry, not ministry, but I think closing church, yeah, I've thought of, but not ministry. But closing the church itself, I've thought of, because I felt like, baby, it's taxing. I mean, we can't even live our lives because whatever money that we make must come here. And here I'm expecting growth with my naked eye, and I feel like this growth is not happening. So why not live a luxurious life? Sithenga Mercedes-Benz, si attend inkonzo sifana nabanye abazalwane, sishumele there. I've had those thoughts. Sibe right. Singathathi imali sifake la. Ngoba la ungathi akhulu.
Hey, God has been so kind to sustain us in times when we didn't think we were going to be able to stand. And He's given us the grace. We spend a lot of money into church things because we believe in what we do. And fortunately, we have the support from home in terms of people being present. And I think I appreciate that more than anything. We were never doubted in our calling by our family. As a matter of fact, we get a lot of encouragement and support. And I am grateful for that. So I think I've had those moments when I thought, well, we can just close this thing. First of all, we had a difficulty just finding a place, and I think we spent about 4 years looking for a place. I am not saying it will never happen that one day I'll find myself having fellowship in a class. Life is very unpredictable. But I have always pushed myself to achieve things that I was told I can never achieve. I love excellence. I love beautiful things. So I always achieve those things. I always pursue those things, rather. And it has always been my goal. And we spent a lot of time, 4 years, looking for a place, and some stage saying, But every now and then you find yourself getting up and pursuing again. And eventually we found ourselves here, coming from other places we've studied in. And we're still seeing God taking us to higher heights. And we are grateful, and we know that God has got greater plans for us. All the things that we have suffered and they told us we needed to give up, that when we saw God and seeing God in those hard moments said you need to continue because God is with you. And we are standing because of the testimonies that we have in those moments of doubts. That's why we are standing. Other than that, we wouldn't be still standing and pursuing to do God's will if all we had to walk by was seeing things and then confirming and affirming that this is God. So we walk with God when we see, and we walk with God when we can't see. That's our journey.
Yeah, questioning God, I think, for our journey, when I think of our pregnancy journey, I think that's where I mostly question, especially this year, back in May. I was just shocked. I was like, how, I felt like He could have told me. I feel like God tells me a lot of things, and that part of life, I felt like He would, He could have said that, guys, don't worry. This one is also going to go as well. And that was a very tough moment for me. And that's when I questioned, honestly, I felt like, it's like when you spend your life talking about how great God is, what impossible things God does. And when you pray for people and God does things for people. And when something like that happens to you, and that's when you're like, how? For me, I felt like the least that God could have done. Maybe, because our baby died, was just to at least unclear to say, your baby's going to die. So that at least I know that it's going to happen, because I just didn't know. That was like a moment where I was like, well, yeah, but at this time, I thought the first time when he lost her baby, you know, you could see, or I guess it's like a buy one, you know, he took 2 years to recharge it because he knew, or get need that bar again, it will sala again. So, you know, working with God is very interesting because he sharpens you, and most of the things which we go through, especially as ministers, is not necessarily for ourselves. And it's not necessarily for ourselves. And what I've learned is that I must minimize or cut to personalize things. Because oftentimes, if not most of the time, it's not even personal. And that there are things that you need to go through because of what you are about and where you're going. And there's a level of trust that God is looking for in us, that sometimes the only way that thing can come is like Job, for us to lose things that are very dear to us. And we read about Job, we preach about Job, but when we experience a quarter of what God or Job experienced, we feel like a manjinle. But there are certain things that needs to happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. They will happen. But one thing I know is that as long as the end goal has not happened, I see iffy. But even though we walk through the valley of shadow of death, it means we will walk through it. So with ministry, with marriage, with money, that's another topic. We'll talk about money, guys. I'll do another video about finances and what God does. We'll talk about that. But the point is, there are certain things that needs to happen. And we can't pray them away. I don't think there's anything that Job could have done to pray it away. You can't pray it away. You can't fast it away. Prayer session this time, it doesn't work. If your child is meant to die because of what God wants to do, your child will die. If you need to lose your house, you will lose your house. If you need to lose your job, you will lose your job. Because some things, we can't pray them away.
Sure.
Yeah, we had those moments. And I think the good thing is when she is down, mostly I am strong. Every time she goes through a difficult moment, I don't know how God does it. He finds me strong, so I'm able to minister to her. And when I am weak, that situation finds her strong, and she's able to help me stand. Just a God thing.
Sure. That was amazing. Yeah. Let's see how well you guys know each other, as powerful and anointed as you are. Let's just test that side. So what is your spouse's favorite food?
Prawns. So Sbongiseni has turned into this guy. When I met Sbongiseni, guys, he was simple. He ate rice and chicken. Now, his favorite meal is prawns. And chicken.
I must look back where I come from.
And chicken. That's
all I could
that's what
afford.
you eat.
I could afford chicken and rice.
Okay.
Nothing else. Unless it's Christmas.
But the number one thing that he loves is prawns.
Well, my wife loves a lot of things. But popcorn is the number one thing.
Oh.
Yeah, popcorn. It's dark, it's blue, it's yellow. Popcorn must be there. That's the thing in the house.
Okay. Popcorn. Interesting. One loves prawns, the other popcorn. Wow. So when is your anniversary?
12 October.
Hey, don't ask me. I forget all
This
the
one doesn't
time.
know
I'm
dates.
always in trouble.
No, he doesn't know dates.
I don't know whether
I don't even
know whether I'm 8 years in marriage or 7.
No.
I always had to be reminded. When it's that moment, I must be reminded. But I know I'm somewhere in October between 7 and 8 years. But it's been 8 years of grace and many, many, many testimonies. And I've seen myself growing in love more and more for my wife. And sure she experienced the same.
Right. When was your first kiss? Bafundisi abangcwele.
Hey,
Inceku yafika ivakashile from Durban to come minister.
Ew.
And I think after isermon Inceku yathi hayi Inceku azingeke. Dala sikhuluma ngefone. Usondela kumina. Inceku iyasondela ke ayi. But we're still back in school. I think it was our first year of our relationship.
hey, aye, bangcwele.
Best kiss I've ever had.
Hey,
He still must live up to that kiss.
athendekayo ngalwa. Yeah, that was the day that changed my life. I was never the same. Bangcwele. I wasn't sleeping right. But it was really, really something good. And we still do it appropriately. We still did it appropriately. We've always been conscious that we needed to be honoring and respecting ourselves. But I enjoyed it.
Yeah, the best.
No, I did.
I think that was the best
No, I did.
we've ever had.
I was not kissing anyone. I was not looking forward to kiss anyone. So this was the person. And in my heart, I was convinced this is my wife. And I was not caught up in so many wells. There was one well, and I was sure about it. So, yeah. Ish. Why did you ask us this question?
Right. Why do you keep choosing each other?
My wife, I'm confident in who I am, so you can tell me why do you choose me? I'm confident in what I deliver.
That's all. So I keep choosing Sbongiseni mostly because he chooses me. I think at my worst moments, he chooses me. And I ask him, why do you keep loving me? He says, angazi kodwa nami ngiyazibuza ukuthi ngikuthanda ngoba sometimes unesicefe nje. But ngiyakuthanda nonetheless. So I choose him because he's supportive, my number one cheerleader. He pushes me to be the best. He chooses me. He pushes me rather to be, if I give him an idea to say, baby, this is what I want to do, he just grabs it and he runs with it, and he's ensuring
And
that...
we fight before we get to where it can be perfect. Fight alone.
Because our vision of perfect is not the same.
Only when it's done, then you say, Eish,
Yeah.
I didn't understand what you were doing, but Eish, I'm happy.
But I keep choosing him because he literally, I can confidently say that Sbongiseni's life, he's dedicated it to me and to push me. Like I feel like if there's this thing called an assignment, I think that, his assignment, he's making sure that when God calls him back, he will say, if there's one thing that I did on earth was to ensure with everything that has to do with her, and he's pushing me. He is very supportive in my career. I remember before I got into the position that I am now, when I was told that I was getting a promotion, I called him. I said, baby, I can't do this job. This job is too much. It's too demanding. I don't think I have the mind for it. And he said, no, I know you. You will ace that job. So don't even question it. Go back and just take that job. And for me, I was like, you don't know what they want. It's complicated. I've never done this before. Like, no, this is your season. You will do it. If you can't do it, as much as I didn't study accounting, but I will help you and we will do it together. And he's just 100% involved in everything that I do, making sure that he pushes me and makes me see things which I've never seen before, make me imagine places and, literally expanding my capacity of everything that involves me. And that's why I will keep choosing Sbongiseni. Yeah.
I think the reason why I choose my wife all the time is because when I first met her, First time I experienced unconditional love. Never felt like I was judged anyway. Where I come from, what I was and what I wanted to achieve, she embraced that as if it was her own desire, her own dream. And I've always loved about her, loved that about her. And above that, she's just this person who loves people. And I know if my wife says, Maramutu, oh, something is not right, I have to check that thing very carefully, because 99.9% she's correct, And she knows that I don't easily chase people away. I want to make my own judgment and make sure that I'm making a good decision about anything or any person, and not just dismiss them based on what she says. But I know that 99.9%, if she feels there's something wrong, it's correct. So I love that about her, that she's a loving person. She's a very supportive person. She's a very stubborn person. And sometimes I enjoy that about her, because it gets me to do certain things, And I think because we understand each other, we have learned to enjoy each other. And I choose her because of that all the time. If I'm with her, I know I will be the best man that I ought to be. And I look at my life and I'm saying my life has changed because of her. And I thank God for that.
Well, thank you, the Mbonambis, and may you continue to be such a beautiful example. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.